All right, so in this video, we're going to be taking a drawing, or rather a model, that we've created, and we're going to turn it into an official drawing. All right, that means putting it on paper, getting everything with the title block correct, and then I'll show you a couple things in terms of the layout. Again, only the first part of the drawings, because drawings can be somewhat confusing depending on what information and how much information you want to try to automate, and we'll talk about some of the automation built into the drawing system. So a couple ways that you can start a drawing. One is to go right up to the top, especially if you have a drawing that is open and saved. Okay, that's the important thing. You have to make sure that this model is saved. And then you can go right up to the top here to that little paper icon, hit the drop down. And under the drop down, you have make drawing from a part or assembly. Okay. Left click on that. All right. You might get this little error message here. You might not. I'm going to click OK here. All right. And you should see sheet size and sheet format. Okay. With sheet size and sheet format, it basically gives you a list of some of the most regular sheet sizes that are used in industry. All right. You might have to select or deselect display sheet size format or display sheet format. Only show standard formats. You can play with this checkbox on the bottom and the checkbox on top if you're not seeing your full list here. Okay. Basically, we're going to start with B ANSI landscape. Okay, so we're going to select B ANSI landscape and click OK. All right. Now, the first thing that happens is on the right-hand side of my screen, I have what's known as the view palette. Okay, so this view palette is broken up into two sections. The bottom section is all the views that are made up from your model. Okay, we got our front view, top view, our right view, all the other views back, left, and bottom, as well as an isometric, dimetric, trimetric, and then finally a current view. Okay, so if you modeled it incorrectly, or you modeled it correctly and then went back to your model and changed the view of it, okay, that current view will show up here as long as that's where the model is saved or how the model is saved. Okay, the top portion of it is going to show you the file names that are open, okay, because you might be working on 3 different files at the same time. It's going to have a little ellipsis button, which is a browser button, so you can actually open up a brand new part using this icon. And then there's a refresh. This refresh is important if you make a mistake laying out your part, okay? So basically what you do is you drag and drop from your view palette onto the drawing space. Now the first view that you pull out is going to be your parent view automatically. Okay, so and from your parent view, you can pull off your children view or child views, right? So I have to make sure that I want to pick probably the view that's in here, my front view. And then from my front view, I can pull off a top view and a right view. Okay, so I'm going to left click on the front view. I'm going to hold down my mouse button. I'm going to drag, let go. Okay, and that converts my drawing. And you'll see moving my mouse away from my projected view, right? It gives me all of the associated views based on that one parent view. Okay, so I'm going to drag my mouse straight up. You notice that there's a tracking line from center to center, making sure that everything's aligned. I'm going to left click to set my next view. Okay, then off of my parent view, I'm going to pull off my right side view, left click, and then I'm going to go up into the corner, and I know that this is not the most ideal location at this point, but the isometric view will not be aligned afterwards. So I'm going to left click just to place it in someplace, and then I'm going to right click to get out of, I moved my mouse, so I'm just going to hit escape then, and that will get me out of my command. All right. So now what happens is I've got 4 views, and if I go up into the upper right hand corner, view palette, if I open that up, okay, it shows that this front view is my parent view. Okay, what used to happen before is that these views would disappear as you put them on the page, and sometimes they still do. So if you needed to restart all over again, you would just refresh, and it would refresh all of the views based on your current model. Okay, so I'm going to left click in empty space. That goes away. Now, with our views, you'll notice that as I hover close to my view, I see an orange bounding box. Okay? My mouse has to be on the line of that box in order to move it. Okay? Right now I'm moving the parent view. So if I'm moving the parent view, the child moves with it. Okay? And it will not break alignment unless I force it to. My isometric view, okay, automatically breaks alignment. I can place it anywhere, and the other views doesn't affect it, and it does not affect the other views. Okay, so this isometric view, I want to tuck in the corner. All right. All my other views, I want to make sure that I have enough spacing for dimensioning. Okay. Sometimes your parts will come in with these blue origins. Okay, those blue origins, they will print. All right, they should not be there, but they will print. So the best way to deal with that is to go up into the heads up display, into the little eyeball, and the 4th icon down, view origins, turn that off. Okay, it's that 4th icon down, view origins. You can turn that off, and those blue origin points will disappear from all your drawings. Okay. Now, one thing that you'll notice in the title block, okay, in the title block, whatever you see in the title, that is when you saved your file, that is the description of your file. Okay. The drawing number, this is what you actually save your file as, right? So we talked about this. Even though this is an angle plate, I don't save it as an angle plate for this reason, because SOLIDWORKS takes the title of your file and puts it in as a drawing number. The description, it places under the title. So this is why it's important to save your files appropriately, okay? So if I went back into my file here, go up into a file, save as. Okay, this is what we're getting it from. File name, that's my part number. Description, that's my title. Okay, this is where it comes from. I'm going to cancel that, come back into my drawing. Okay. Now, when I select one click, okay, on any particular view, this one happens to be the parent view. On the left-hand side, I get the properties for that parent view, and usually by default, we have a display style that is not really true. Okay, hidden lines are removed. That's what it is by default. We have to change to hidden lines visible. When I click on that, all of a sudden the hidden lines are visible in this view, now also in this view and this view. All right, so because it was the parent view, it also controls all of the other views. All right, does that make sense? If I click to shaded, they all turn shaded. Right? Click back to hidden, they all turn hidden. Okay. If I were to do it to the any other view, any other of the children views, and I do the same thing, go over to the properties and I change it to colored, only that one stays colored. None of the other ones change because this is a child view. Okay, the child does not control the parent controls the child. Okay, just like at home, right? So, the isometric view can be a little bit different if you like to. It doesn't have to conform to the standards of the other orthographic views. But once you make a change to any of the children, then they are isolated. Okay? So, the next thing I need to do is figure out scale. All right? Because it's obvious that the isometric view is right now the same scale, but it's taking up space from my right side view to be able to properly place dimensions. Okay? Two ways you can do this. Okay? The proper way is to rescale all of your parts, all right, or all of your views. And I do that, making sure you left click an empty space so that nothing is selected. Going over into the plane properties, and you'll see sheet number 1. If you right click on sheet number 1 and go down to its properties, okay, you'll see sheet properties. You'll see a couple of things in here. First thing is scale. Okay, 1:1. You change it manually. Second thing is type of projection. Okay, first angle projection, if you remember, is more of the European standard. Here in the United States, we are third angle projection. If you wanted to change paper size, this is where you would do it. Okay, maybe you needed an A size sheet or a D size sheet or a C size sheet. This is where you can make the change to your paper size. All right, so right now I'm 1:1. I'm going to change my scale 1:2, half scale. Hit apply changes. You'll notice everything now changes scale. Also, my scale in my title block changes to 1/2 or 1:2. I can tuck this up in the corner, and everything else is good. Now, this looks a little bit too small for me, right? There are not a lot of dimensions, so I'm going to bring it back up 1:1 scale. Okay, so I left click an empty space to kind of start fresh. Right click on sheet 1, go to properties, change 1:1, and apply. The other way to do it is to select the view that you want to have at a different scale. So I'm going to left click on the bounding box of my isometric view, and I'm going to scroll down to where we say scale, okay, using the parent scale. Right? That's what it's currently selected on. So that means that this view is currently using the same scale as my parent view. Or I can use the sheet scale. So this view is currently using the sheet scale of 1:1. Right? That's built in the properties. Or I can give it a custom scale. So I click on that radio button and say, bring it down to half scale. Okay, now it's using its own scale. You can green check, or you can left click an empty space and normal out. All right, so I've got my views out. I've changed my parent view to hidden lines visible, so I can see all the hidden lines. Okay. Under the annotation tab, I'm going to go over to the right, and I have center marks and center lines. Okay, I still have to do this manually. So center line, I click on center line. It gives me a little warning box. Manually insert center line, select two edges. Okay, so I want to make sure that I'm on the right edge here. So I left click 1, left click 2, and it automatically inserts a center line. I'm going to do the same thing in this view. Don't forget about all the other views, right? So hit in line 1, hit in line 2, and it inserts a center line. Again, appropriately spaced, and the lines are extending past the visible lines. Okay, so that's exactly what we want. When I'm done, I can green check. And now I can start dimensioning. To dimension, just like before, I use Smart Dimension. Okay, so go in between the parts, 1 and 2, and that's not right. So from here I have to double check. Okay, 0.11 is definitely not right. It's supposed to be 4.5 inches. So I look down in the bottom right hand corner. I'm in inch pound second, which is where I'm supposed to be. I'm going to click on this dimension to highlight it blue, and it changed. Okay, so apparently you just wanted me to click on IPS again to confirm. Okay, I'm going to hit escape. And to continue dimensioning, we'll go from here to here. Oops. Make sure I turn on my Smart Dimension. Do thickness that way. You will notice that there are, when I click on the line here, there's a little yellow half circle and a blue half circle. That basically is a little shortcut for placing the dimension on the left side or the right side of that line. Okay, and it tries to find the best possible position, and it automatically does that. So just hovering over will kind of toggle between left and right or up and down. Once you move away from that, it'll disappear, and then you can manually place those dimensions. All right, so I'm going to ignore that one, and I'm just going to go from here to here. And it will automatically snap and see where all those other arrowhead lines are. Okay, let's see what else I need from the point to here. Right, and I can always readjust afterwards. So it takes a little bit of getting used to. Am I missing something? This guy. Okay, so try to remember your standards. Again, the best way is to count all the dimensions on your drawing. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I'm going to look on my drawing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got one extra. Oh, right, because we were missing the 3/4 inch dimension on the actual sheet. Okay. Left click in empty space or hit escape to get out of the Smart Dimensioning tool. All right, and then you can see where you need to make adjustments. I'm noticing that Even though I'm in inch pound second, this is the ISO standard of dimensioning. It's not the ANSI standard of dimensioning. So I'm going to double check to see what SolidWorks has listed as my dimensioning standard. Okay, so I'm going to go up to the little gear or the little sprocket up top. And that little gear, I'm going to left click on the gear. And I will go to Document Properties. Okay, there's only two tabs here, System Options and Document Properties. Okay, so my drafting standard is set to ANSI. Okay, however, that is not the ANSI standard. Okay, if I want to take a look under dimensions, under linear, okay, or actually we'll do radius. Okay, the radius says ISO, and you can see what that ISO standard looks like. Okay, overall drafting standard, it's telling me ANSI. Unfortunately, that's not true. Okay, so under my drafting standard, I'm going to switch to ISO and switch back to ANSI, and then click OK. Okay, now everything has changed. So all the dimensions are unidirectional, right? And my radius, I can tell immediately with my radius, it has that little shoulder or that neck, and everything is read properly now. Okay, so just be careful with that, and later on I'll show you how to create a template so that this is already preset, and we won't have to worry about it too much. Okay. Now, the last thing I want to show you with this is that you might have a name or a description that takes up too much space in the title block. Okay, so how you deal with that? Your drawings have two modes. They have edit sheet format and edit sheet. Okay, this is currently editing the sheet. Okay, it's the plain sheet. Editing the sheet format basically goes into formatting how this sheet looks like. Okay, so the best way to do that is to right click in empty space on the sheet. Okay, right click and go into edit sheet format. Left click to select that. You'll notice that everything goes away. Okay, it didn't disappear permanently. It just hides everything because now we're focused on the sheet formatting. Okay, so this is normal. This will come back as soon as I'm done. So you'll notice that the title block is in blue. Some of the other information is in black as far as the text goes. That's normally there. Your mouse. Okay, again, pay attention to your mouse icon. If I hover over the word angle plate, you'll see that the mouse cursor changes to a letter A. Okay, I'm going to come back. There's a little bubble that pops up that says $ property sheet, and then under quotes, description. Okay, so this property sheet description is basically telling you that it's pulling whatever is in the description of your file name into this box. Okay, same thing under drawing number. Property, SolidWorks file name. So that little bubble that pops up temporarily tells you exactly where it's pulling the information from. Okay, up here we have an empty box. All right, all in here we have empty boxes. Okay, so for instance, drawn. All right, if I go under name, there's a certain point where my cursor changes to that little letter A, and it says properties drawn by. So just mousing over, I can see, right, there's that little box. There's an empty property drawn by. So there's a spot somewhere on my model, okay, my part file, that's I can fill out what the drawn by text is, and it'll automatically fill it in here. Okay, same thing with the date. Drawn date, right? All of these. Checked by. Checked date. These are already preset properties that in the part file, it'll pull that information from. Okay? Now, we can ignore it right now, all right, because it is a little bit complicated to talk about this, but I just wanted to show you that it is there. All right, same thing with material. There is a material section. There's a finish section. Okay. Some of these other elements are open and they do not have links to them. All right. It's just as easy to go up into the annotation tab using Note. And I'm going to left click inside the box. Type my name. Left click outside of the box when you're done. Okay, and then just be careful because it will attach your name again to your cursor. So you're going to have to hit escape. Okay. Double clicking on the text. You can change the font size. Maybe you need to make it bigger or shorter. Change the actual font. Whatever you need to do. Okay, as long as it stays with the standard and what the expectations are, then we're good. Okay, so now how do you get out of this? The same way you got in. Right-click in empty space. This time we want to go back into Edit Sheet. Left-click. And that brings our drawing back, and now you've got your information filled in here. Okay? So for the time being, when we create drawings, we're just going to use the Note tool to put in our initials and put in our date, put in any other information that we need to, including our name. Okay? Once we're done with that, you've created your sheet.